I stepped out of the office and stopped so fast my bag slid off my shoulder. My parking spot, was completely empty. No broken glass, no tow notice on a pole, nothing. Just a dead rectangle of asphalt where my 2023 Camry should have been. For a second, my brain tried to fix it. Maybe I was on the wrong level. Maybe I parked one row over. I checked the row number again, my fingers shaking, and whispered under my breath, no, 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 no. The space stayed empty. That car was the first thing I had ever bought brand new. 6 years of saving, saying no to trips, skipping dinners out, working overtime. Last month I had made the final payment. It was supposed to be mine now, clean and clear. My chest tightened. I could feel my pulse in my throat as I scanned the lot for any sign of a tow truck or a ticket. Nothing. Just the low hum of traffic in the distance and the buzz of a streetlight flickering to life above me. Someone stole my car, I thought. Then another thought slid in, colder, sharper. Or maybe they did not. I grew up hearing that being the strong one was a compliment. People said it like I should be proud. You are so steady. You are so reliable. You never cause trouble. What they never said out loud was the rest of it. Being the strong one means you are the person they can keep taking from, because you will not break loudly enough to bother anyone. My name is Sloan Parker. I am 30 years old, and I work as a software engineer in Denver. On the outside, people see pressed shirts, light makeup, calm voice. On the inside, I have spent years swallowing things whole. Hurt, disappointment, anger, all packed down until they sit like stones in my stomach. In my family, my younger sister Elena was the one who needed more. That was the story. She was the emotional one, the fragile one, the one who felt everything too intensely. My parents moved around her like she was a candle in a drafty room, cupping their hands to shield her from even the smallest breeze. They never worried about the storm on my side of the house. They assumed I would stand up through it. When we were teenagers, the difference between us was already bright and sharp. I worked part-time after school, wiping down tables in a diner, rolling change, saving crumpled bills in a box under my bed. After months, I finally bought a used laptop with a fan that sounded like it was permanently out of breath. I loved that stupid machine. The next morning, I watched my mother carry a brand new MacBook into Elena's room and place it gently on her comforter. She needs it for a project, she told me in the hallway. I nodded and pretended the floor had not shifted under my feet. When I was 18, Elena borrowed my bike for an hour. It came back 2 days later, tossed in the mud behind a friend's house, chain rusted, seat torn. I pointed at it, voice unsteady, and my father just sighed. Do not be dramatic, Sloan. You can fix it. She did not mean to. That was the day I learned the rule in our house. Intention mattered more than impact, at least when it came to Elena. If she did not mean harm, then somehow I was expected to absorb the damage. Through college, I worked 2 jobs. Late nights in the library, instant noodles, coffee that tasted like burnt plastic. I prided myself on not asking for help. Then one semester I checked my savings account and felt my stomach drop. Almost all of it was gone. Weeks later, I found out why. My parents had used the money to cover one of Elena's classes after she missed a payment deadline. My mother smiled a little too brightly when she told me. Family helps family, she said. You understand. I did understand. I understood exactly where I sat on the list of priorities. By the time I graduated and moved to Denver, I had stopped expecting fairness from anyone with my last name. Independence felt safer than hope. I paid my bills on time, solved my own problems, and kept my voice small whenever I visited home. My life in Denver became a quiet promise to myself that I would build something no one could take. The car was part of that promise. A silver 2023 Camry. Reliable, simple, mine. Every payment felt like a tiny victory stamped in my name. When I sent a photo to the family group chat, my parents congratulated me. But there was a look in my father's eyes, even through the screen. A tightness, like my stability, made Elena's chaos harder to excuse. Elena had totaled 3 cars in 5 years. One in a rainstorm, one while texting, one after a night out she insisted had been only 2 drinks. Each time, my parents called it bad luck. Each time, another car appeared for her, like the universe owed her a do-over on repeat. So when I stared at the empty parking spot, it did not feel random. It felt like a familiar script holding its breath. I did what any rational person would do. I tried to talk myself out of the truth. Maybe I parked on another level. Maybe a tow notice went up and I missed it. Maybe I really was that tired and I had forgotten where I left it. I walked the entire garage level by level, row by row, until my feet hurt and my head pounded. By the 4th pass, the denial started to crack. My car was not misplaced. It was gone. My breathing went shallow. My hand slipped on the screen as I opened my contacts and hit the number I always called first, even when I swore I would not. My mother picked up on the second ring, her voice light, like she was already smiling. "Hey, honey, what is up?" "Mom," I could barely get the words out. "My car is gone. I think someone stole it. Do you know if they can tow from our garage or who I should call or—" "Oh, sweetheart, relax," she cut in. "We gave it to Elena." For a second, the whole world went silent. The echo of the garage, the distant traffic, everything just dropped away. "You what?" "We gave it to Elena," she repeated, like she was explaining something small. "She needs it more right now. She cannot take the bus to her new job. You will figure it out for a few days. Do not make this bigger than it is." I stared at the empty space where my car should have been, where my life's work on 4 wheels had been parked that morning. Her words hit like a slap in slow motion. They had not just taken my car. They had decided it was theirs to give away. The sounds around me went muffled, like I was underwater. The hum of a streetlight. A door closing. Someone laughing 2 rows over. None of it felt real. "You took my keys," I said quietly. "You took my car." I did not agree to anything. "We borrowed it," she insisted. "You are overreacting. Stop being selfish." Selfish. That word again. The one they pulled out whenever I tried to draw a line. It slid into my chest and scraped along an old bruise. In the background, I heard my father's voice, closer than it should have been, like he had been on speaker the whole time. "It is still in the family, Sloane. You are making a scene over nothing. We all share. Remember when we helped you in college? You used my savings to pay for Elena's class," I whispered. That did not help me. There was a beat of silence. Then my mother sighed, the disappointed kind she used when I did not fall into line fast enough. "Do not start this again. Your sister is trying. She has had a rough time." A rough time. The same rough time she had been having for a decade while I quietly held everything up. In my head, memories flashed one after another. Elena sobbing after the first crash, my parents wrapped around her like a shield. Elena texting through a red light, the second car folded at the front like paper. My father saying she is shaken, do not yell at her. Elena stumbling in after a party, slurring about how the third car just slid. My mother rubbing her back, whispering, she needs compassion, not criticism. 3 cars gone in 5 years. And now my car, the only one I had ever owned that did not come with someone else's history. "Give her a few days," my father said. "She will bring it back." "No," I said, and my own voice surprised me. "She will not." My mother's tone turned sharp. "Do not do anything stupid, Sloane." There it was. The word they always used when they were about to cross a line and did not want to be reminded of it. Family. Family helps family. Family shares. Family forgives. Family apparently steals. For the first time in my life, I saw it clearly. I was not the strong one. I was the one they thought would never fight back. My hands started to tremble. But my mind felt eerily calm. Cold, almost. I pulled the phone away from my ear. I could still hear my mother's voice spilling through the speaker, frantic now, scolding and pleading at the same time. I did not listen. I hung up. For a heartbeat, I just stood there, phone loose in my hand, staring at the empty asphalt. Then, very quietly, I opened the dial pad again. This time I did not call my parents. I called 911. Officer Ruiz arrived 20 minutes later, her patrol car rolling to a stop under the orange wash of the garage lights. She stepped out with the kind of steady presence that makes the ground feel solid again. I swallowed hard as she approached, my fingers still clutching my documents. "Are you Sloane Parker?" she asked. I nodded, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "Yes. My car is gone. I don't know if it was stolen or towed or, let's take it one step at a time." She held out her hand. "Registration and insurance?" I handed her the folder I kept in my glove compartment, the one I had organized neatly over the years because being prepared was my default mode. She flipped through the pages, her expression tightening slightly. "All under your name," she said. "Yes. Completely mine. And nobody had permission to take it?" The question felt heavier than it sounded. For a second, I almost hesitated, as if my family's habits still held the power to blur reality. But I pushed the hesitation away. "No one," I said. "Absolutely no one." Hearing myself say the words out loud made something shift inside me. A quiet kind of clarity, the kind I had ignored too many times in the past. Ruiz glanced up toward the security camera pointed at the garage entrance. "We'll pull footage. And I'll put out a bolo. If it was driven out, we'll find it." When she radioed the details, hearing Elena's full name spoken through police channels hit me harder than the missing car. My sister's name, echoing in a place where consequences actually existed. Ruiz lowered her radio. "Family theft cases can be tricky emotionally," she said. "But the law is straightforward. Permission is everything." Her voice wasn't harsh, but it was direct. Clean, like a line drawn with a ruler. When she left, the parking lot suddenly felt enormous, too quiet, too echoing. I sat on the curb, staring at the empty spot. I expected to feel relieved that I'd taken action, that I'd stood up for myself for the first time in years. Instead, guilt wrapped itself tight around my ribs. Reporting your own family isn't simple. It scrapes at old loyalties, old fears, old wounds. Every accusation they ever made about me replayed in my mind. Dramatic, ungrateful, selfish. Words they trained me to believe. I stood and walked back into my building, hands numb. The elevator ride felt too slow, too bright. When I reached my apartment, the space didn't feel like home. I made tea, but it tasted metallic. I sat on the couch, staring at the dark window, watching Denver's lights flicker against the glass. My phone buzzed once, then again, then again. I picked it up with a dread I knew too well. Messages from unknown numbers. Relatives. People who hadn't spoken to me in months. "Drop the report. Don't ruin the family. Be understanding." Not one message asked if I had a way home. I set the phone down and let the silence fill the apartment. It wasn't strength. It was exhaustion. A deep, bone-level exhaustion from decades of keeping the peace while everyone else set things on fire. And somewhere in the middle of that exhaustion, something new took shape. Not anger. Resolve. They had crossed a line. And for the first time, I wasn't going to sweep the line away just because they told me to. 3 days later, my phone buzzed while I was at work. Officer Ruiz's name lit up the screen. My stomach twisted. "We located your vehicle," she said. "Your sister was stopped for speeding near Aurora. The car's been impounded." "Impounded?" I whispered. "Yes. She's fine, physically. She's being questioned now." Of course she was fine. Elena had spent her whole life padding her falls with other people's sacrifices. I thanked Ruiz, hung up, and sat back in my desk chair. Relief, anger, guilt, something darkly satisfying, they all hit at once. My coworkers chatted in the background, keyboards clacking, the office humming in its usual rhythm. But I felt completely still inside. That evening, I drove a rental to the impound lot. The building sat behind a tall chain-link fence under harsh white floodlights, the whole place humming like an industrial heartbeat. The clerk barely looked at me as he handed over paperwork. Camry, silver, space 34. You'll find it down the second aisle. I walked slowly, my footsteps echoing off the concrete. My pulse quickened with each row. Then I saw it. And my breath caught. Fast food wrappers were stuffed into the cup holders. Makeup streaks smeared the passenger door. An energy drink had spilled across the console. Mud crushed into the carpets. My emergency blanket was crumpled in the back like trash. The gas tank was nearly empty. My car didn't look stolen. It looked violated. She only had it for 8 hours, I whispered. A voice behind me answered, people treat what they don't earn differently. I turned. Officer Ruiz stood in the dim light, her arms crossed. Her words weren't cruel. They were honest. Brutally honest. I braced both hands on the door frame, breathing slowly. That cold, razor-edged understanding slid deeper into place. Everything made sense now. The bike in the mud at 18. The savings drained without consent. The constant taking, the constant forgiveness, the endless cycle of Elena breaking things and me being expected to patch them. They had taught Elena something dangerous. She believed consequences were optional. But not this time. Not anymore. When the paperwork was done, Ruiz handed me the keys. Whatever happens next, she said quietly, remember this. Accountability isn't cruelty. Her words followed me all the way home. And for the first time in my life, I believed them. A week later, I sat in a hard wooden chair outside courtroom 4B, hands knotted in my lap. The hallway smelled like disinfectant, old paper, and nerves. People whispered in low anxious tones, shoes tapping across polished floors. My chest felt tight, but not from fear. It felt tight from everything inside me finally rising to the surface after years of being buried. Across the hall sat my parents. My father was leaning forward, elbows on his knees, jaw tense in a way that meant he was rehearsing an argument. My mother sat stiffly beside him, her fingers working anxiously at the strap of her purse. And between them, Elena. She looked smaller than I expected. Shoulders slumped. Eyes down. Leg bouncing as if her body was trying to run even while sitting still. She didn't look at me. Not once. When the clerk called the case, we filed in. The courtroom felt colder. Then the hallway. The lights were brighter, clinical, unforgiving. Rows of wooden benches, the judge's tall desk, the flag in the corner, it all felt like the opposite of my family's world. This place didn't bend for feelings. It bent for truth. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes and a voice like a blade, flipped through the paperwork. She finally looked at Elena. Miss Reyes, she said, her tone steady. I understand you wish to enter a plea today. Elena nodded, voice barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. Please read your written statement aloud. I didn't breathe. Not because I needed her to apologize. I needed her to acknowledge reality for once in our lives. Elena's hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. Her voice wavered at first. I, Elena Reyes, admit that I took my sister's vehicle without permission. A pause. A breath. I knew the car was not mine. I took it anyway because I assumed she would forgive me. What I did was wrong. I'm sorry. For the first time in a very long time, Elena sounded like an adult. Not a child cushioned by excuses. Not a fragile creature my parents needed to protect from consequences. Just a person facing a truth she could no longer outrun. The judge nodded. Let the record reflect a guilty plea. My heart thudded in my chest. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vindictive. I just felt seen. The judge continued, her voice even, unshaken. Given the circumstances, this court sentences the defendant to 6 months probation, a 1-year license suspension, and restitution to the victim for impound fees. The gavel hit wood. My parents gasped. My mother covered her mouth with shaking fingers. My father tensed as if someone had struck him instead of Elena. They didn't look at me. Not once. As the courtroom emptied, I stood still, letting people pass. Elena walked by inches from me, her eyes swollen, her face red. She hesitated like she wanted to speak. But my mother placed a hand on her arm and tugged her forward. Not now, she whispered sharply. Don't let her make this worse. Her. As if I were the danger. As if I were the one who needed controlling. The door shut behind them. And something inside me settled. Heavy, but steady. Not grief, not joy. Just, truth. I wasn't trembling anymore. I wasn't shrinking. I felt rooted, grounded, held up by a spine I had spent years trying to grow. Outside, the Denver sky hung low and gray. I walked to my car, and sat inside. The steering wheel felt different under my hands. Not because it was repaired or cleaned. Because I wasn't holding it out of survival anymore. I was holding it out of ownership. It hadn't felt like mine in a long time. Not because of the title, but because of the history tied to it. My family had taken so much from me that even my victories felt borrowed. But not now. This moment wasn't about the car. It was about everything they tried to take from me, my agency, my voice, my boundaries, and everything I finally took back. I drove home slowly, letting silence fill the spaces where guilt used to live. Each mile felt like a separation between the woman I once was and the woman I was finally becoming. When I stepped into my apartment, the air felt different, cleaner somehow, lighter. Like stepping into a room that had just been swept after years of clutter. I set my keys on the counter, made myself tea, and sat by the window. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't mourning. I was reclaiming. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet truth settled. This wasn't the destruction of a family. This was the reconstruction of myself. The weeks that followed felt different. The calls from relatives slowed, then stopped. No one accused me anymore. No one demanded anything. For the first time in years, I felt what peace tastes like. It tasted like breathing without waiting for the next blow. I moved to a new apartment on the west side of Denver, closer to the foothills where the air felt lighter. I changed my number. I kept only the people who treated me with respect. I created a life that wasn't shaped by their needs or their chaos. On Thursdays, I joined a small support group at a community center. The sign on the door said boundaries and healing. I sat in rooms with people who carried scars like mine. People who had been the strong one until it broke them. People who understood the weight of invisible wounds. The first time I spoke, my voice shook. But no one flinched. No one called me dramatic. They just nodded. And a nod I had carried since childhood loosened. One afternoon, I drove into the mountains and parked at an overlook. I sat in the driver's seat, watching sunlight skim the ridges. For the first time in my life, I felt something clean and simple. Justice hadn't ruined my family. It had restored me. A year later, a plain envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Elena. Inside was a short letter. No excuses. No shifting blame. Just truth. I'm in therapy now. I'm learning what responsibility actually means. I'm learning how to stop taking from people just to stay afloat. I know I hurt you. I'm trying to be better. I folded the letter, slipped it into a drawer, and felt no rush to reply. Some stories don't end with reunions. Some end with recognition. And sometimes, that's enough. That night, As I locked my car and the orange sunset glinted off the wheel club, a quiet thought settled in me. What's mine stays mine. Not because I guard it with fear, but because I finally learned to protect myself. And in the soft silence of the evening, I felt it, unapologetic, steady, irrevocable, freedom.